Malick, ciao Milanisti, and welcome back. And I start this video off with a cheesy intro as I just did there, because I want to talk about defenders. We've got to talk about defenders. I've been talking so much about the attack lately. I've been harping on the defence. Going, there's not cohesion there between the defence and the midfield, and rightfully so. The attack's been, holding up ever so slightly between Leao and his obviously constant amazement, Brahim Diaz and his like spurts of really good form here and there, and even like Giroud, everyone's sort of popping up goals, Origi, etc. Talk about defenders this week, because not to say we're out the woods, and I feel like the defense is completely structured, especially without Mignon back. It's very difficult to be completely confident that we're gonna run away each game with a clean sheet, etc. But obviously, we've just seen the Dynamo Zagreb game midweek. Great 4-0 victory away from home. I'm not jumping on it as well just because Gabbia got a goal, the first goal in the game, and obviously we came away from a clean sheet. I do feel like a conversation needs to be had at the state of our centre-backs, especially in our defence. And looking at towards the future, because just keeping an open mind as to what's waiting around the corner with contract extensions and renewals, etc. Especially in defence. Look at the previous history. We've just lost Alessandro Romagnoli as well. What is the real state of our centre-back defence situation right now? And really break it down, starting from Gabbia, because I think he's a quantity of, he's a quantity in the case of who we have in the squad that now needs to be maybe potentially accounted for in the selection, whether it's, I don't know, third, fourth, fifth choice in that pecking order. I guess it all sort of depends on where you sit with the rest of the candidates in the defence. And obviously with our injury issues, there's a bit to cover here. And I think this week I want to talk about the defence quite a bit because it needs a bit of attention. So just going into Gabbia straight away. This season, he's clocked in 7 games so far, equaling 421 minutes. And this is obviously just so far. We're not even halfway through the season. I don't even know if we're a third of the way through the season. So there's potentially a lot of room there for him to rack up minutes, rack up games, especially with the injuries that we have in the right back position, which is now making Pierre Kalulu go to right back, because there's also no confidence in Serginho Dest right now, especially in big games, to really fill the void there. So Kalulu has to go to right back. And then there's obviously, we can talk about, Malick Thiaw and Simon Kjaer, about not Kjaer's injuries, Malick Thiaw's lack of experience, especially in this league. And that leads Gabbia to really getting this opportunity now. And I feel like he's taking it to make the most of it and potentially, stamp his place in the centre-back department and especially in the pecking order, potentially for third or fourth choice. 7 games, 421 minutes so far this season. And I think we look back to pre-season, he had a really good pre-season. I was very impressed by him in pre-season. I think a lot of us were, but I think notoriously he was destined for a loan move away. We had the pre-season, we didn't get Botman, and it was a lot of rumours for him, especially from towards the end of last season, going on loan to Sampdoria, which I think a lot of us, Milan fans, would say that was probably the best call for him and his development. He's got a long contract still with the club to 2026. We'll get onto these in a sec with all the defenders' contracts. Very long contract with the club still. He's a very good age to develop, but he needs the game time, he needs the minutes, and he needs probably to gain a better understanding with different players to work with, or maybe different strikers to play against. I think him being destined for a loan move potentially to a team like Sampdoria, or someone in sort of the echelon of the lower 10 in Serie A would have been probably a good move for him. But he was not moved on just because we did not sign Botman. Simon Kjaer had the injury come back. We weren't quite confident when he and what state he'd be in. That's obviously still a question mark right now. And Malick Thiaw was brought in, who's still quite 21 years old, very raw still as a defender. So I feel like we needed that safety blanket of potentially a defender who knows this league quite well, knows this team quite well, purely knows him, and hope to see some development, which I feel like we're seeing. So if we look at those 7 games and 421 minutes now, I'll go back to previous season. He only played 10 games and racked up 674 minutes in the whole course of the season. And I think, you can break that down to many factors. We've spoken about Romagnoli being here last season. He's gone now, so now's the opportunity for him to sort of strike his place in the pecking order. This season, we have the injuries at the right back position, which is making Pierre Kalulu go to right back. So there's this hole now to fill right next to Tomori at centre back position. And I think he was also kept, and this is very important, and it's probably goes hand in hand with Romagnoli going. He was kept because he's Italian, and we can't ignore the fact that we need certain number of Italian players to list, especially in Europe for the squad. He's also homegrown. He's homegrown. He's Primavera grown as well, which also adds another number into that category. So as we're losing these Italian players like Romagnoli and Donnarumma, someone like Gabbia, I think, is needed for squad depth here. It's just a question mark with, how much time is he really going to get for it to allow him to develop probably to the levels that we hope he can do. And there's a question mark on the decision of potentially maybe selling him or loaning him, but then where does that leave us for the course of that season? So there's a lot of question marks to cover here. So yeah, that kind of covers how Gabbia is doing this season compared to last season. And obviously I think there just notoriously there is, because he's a year older and a year more experienced in the league, in a winning side as well, he has learned and he has developed. And pre-season was very good for him as well for his development. So I'm not surprised we're seeing this little step up from him. It's just going to come down to probably consistent game time if he can get it, consistent minutes wherever they pop into. And there's 7 games this season. It's not just as if he's played in the Coppa or just the league. He's played 4 in the league and he's played 3 in the Champions League, playing against teams like Chelsea. So this is great opportunity for exposure in experience for Gabbia right now, and I'm hoping he just kind of kicks on a little bit more. Great goal midweek against Zagreb. We keep talking about defender here, where defenders where we need aerial presence defensively and also offensively. Especially scoring from set pieces. We joke about how we can never score, and here we go. We score from a set piece. It's good. It's a question mark on probably his ceiling. None of us are quite sure on that. I'm not expecting the world from a player like him, but as a 3rd or a 4th choice defender who's a Milanista, I just think there's a question to be sort of asked whether he is the one. So we go from that and we look at the rest of the defenders in the camp. I've made a list of who obviously the 5 centre backs we have, their age and the contracts that they expire from until. So we'll go. Choice number 1. I think this is unanimously known that Fikayo Tomori is the first choice centre back. He's been here the longest, other than been here with the most amount of experience with length of time compared to like Kjaer and Gabbia, but he's minutes galore, played near enough all the games last season as well. 24 years old, Tomori. He's got a contract until 2027, so he's just signed that renewal. I think we're just stamping in that he is the guy. He is our first name on the team sheet when it comes to a centre back. That's not within doubt. Pierre Kalulu, and I think towards the end of last season, of course he is, and I think he is still to me the second choice centre back. If not probably potentially equal at Tomori's length of being the first name on a team sheet when it comes to selecting our defenders. It's just that because he offers this versatility that he can play at right back, and especially we have this crazy injury crisis of not having Calabria and Florenzi until the start of 2023. That and obviously the lack of confidence we have for Serginho Dest, that he's having to play out necessity at right back because it's just the lesser of two evils. And Kalulu's contract's until 2025 still, so still a decent amount of time. But obviously we are in the knowledge that he's negotiating for a renewal, and rightfully so. He needs to be earning more money. The money's is obviously a factor of what he was previously, his level of experience from like a year and a half ago before he really burst out halfway through the course of last season. And he's due his money, and I'm sure we're going to pay him it, and he's probably going to sign a contract renewal until 2027. I think that's I'm not even doubting that. And this these next 3 defenders here is really when there's a bit of a question mark, because we're looking at 3 defenders in different probably levels of maybe their career, their exposure. And we'll start off with Simon Kjaer. And I apologise if I pronounce him wrong. It could be Kjaer. I'm not quite. I've never been confident on pronouncing this guy's name. So if people don't understand who I'm talking about, it's the Danish guy that plays the centre back. I'm going to keep calling him Simon Kjaer. 33 years old, just come off a massive injury. Of course, the ACL injury he had November last year, which he's just come back from. In and out of the squad this season. Barely kind of featured most of the pre-season. He's got a contract until 2024. And at being 23 years old, sorry, 33 years old. I wish he was 23 years old. At being 33 years old, contract until 2024. That covers another 2 more years. He'll be 35 at the time. I think that's, he will probably leave in 2024. I'll be very, very, very surprised if we offer him a contract renewal, even if for like a year. I just can't see it happening. I think he brings obviously a massive level of experience, a great level head to the side. I will never doubt what Kjaer adds to this side, especially. I think if you, it's not so easy if you're removing from the squad that this team still operates the same. I saw it before the Zagreb game. He was leading the team talk. He still offers that massive layer of experience, which I think we need right now with these younger centre-backs. Tomori 24, Kalulu 22, Gabbia 23, Malick Thiaw 21. We need that right now in the squad, especially with Ibra injured still. We're adding layers to this, but Kjaer's still adding that massively. But I do feel like his contract expires in 2024, and he goes. Gabbia, 2023, his contract's until 2026. This is the one that's the question mark. I think a collective decision needs to be made whether he feels like he's not getting enough game time here versus we believe enough of him to give him that game time, which he thinks is adequate to stay. So there's a question mark on whether, say for example, we get to the summer, how many games has he played this season? And does he feel like he's comfortable enough with his development that he can stay and still develop as he goes on? Are we comfortable that he's the guy for third choice centre-back or maybe fourth choice? And I think that goes hand in hand with Malick Thiaw's decision. I think, 21 years old, contract until 2027. That's obviously a longer 1 year on from Gabbia. I wouldn't be surprised if we look to loan out Thiaw. I wouldn't say in the winter, because I think, especially this season, we're learning about how much of an impact the games are from a tighter schedule. And he's so young, I don't feel like a year being at the club is going to really do him harm, especially if he gets limited minutes. I think he'll play in the Coppa Italia games. He'll come on in certain situations. Hopefully he learns from this side, from this environment, from Pioli, from the defenders around him who will be better than the defenders he previously was with. So I'm interested to see, maybe come to the summer there, what happens to Thiaw? Does he potentially, do we look to a loan deal? Does it maybe fall kind of hand in hand with Kjaer's future as well? I'm not quite sure. Because that brings us back to the situation that we had in the summer where we failed to get Botman, who's obviously a top tier centre-back and probably someone we are looking towards, really embedding him into a first team football. But I think every decision that we make here at centre-back has an effect on the pecking order, which I think has an effect on players potentially wanting to stay or maybe go out on loan or potentially leave. It's, like Kalulu right now with his contract, no doubt it's probably a bit more due to money, but at the same time, he probably wants to know where he fits in. And I feel like the confidence we've given him at the back of last season, going into this season, he's, one of the first names on the team sheet. He's got no reason not to. But say, for example, we sign another top tier centre-back in the summer. Where does that leave him in his position and his mental situation of where do I fit in? I need time to develop as well. I'm still very young. I want to take this situation by the horn. So it's very interesting what we have here at the centre-back department. And I'm a big believer in squad depth. I know 100% believe we need the squad depth. It kind of goes back to the whole midfield argument I was hearing last season with like Tonali, Benacer and Kessie, and it was like, oh, let's sell Benacer because we got Kessie and Tonali. No, we need more than just two. We need more than just the starters. We need the depth, and there's enough game time for each of them to finish, to start and have an impact on the side and develop. And now they're looking at it, Kessie's gone and Benacer's kicking on, and now we need him to sign the contract. So it's just, sometimes people kind of look too much at the starters. I think that's enough, and it's like a video game where that's enough to get you through. No, we know this squad is going to get injuries. There's going to be suspensions. We need the squad depth. Look at the big sides around Europe. Teams like Man City have 5 centre-backs where they're all worth, spent £50 million on each of them. So I'm not saying we have to get to that point, but it gives you a level of understanding that we need depth here. We need adequate depth. We need solid depth, especially in such an important position as a centre-backs. And it's not something you can just throw in a couple of youngsters who are happy to sit in the background and when push comes to shove and they're asked to sort of have some involvement into the first team, and you're saying why they're not good enough. It's the right level of experience versus players in their prime versus also players who are very young and trying to develop in their career. So yeah, I'm very interested to see how this kicks on. But yeah, with the games remaining until the World Cup, I really hope Gabbia gets a lot of game time. There's something a bit of me that's kind of thinking that he will. Of course, with the right back situation being what it is. Tomori's back for the Salzburg game. Kalulu will still probably continue to play at right back. Kjaer will be in and out with a rotation with Gabbia. So I think, it was about 5 games left until the World Cup. I think there's I can see Gabbia starting about 3 of them. And I think that's good. It's really good because we'll come away from this conversation here from him playing at least 10 games. So he's matched his level from last season, the amount of games that he's played. Certainly the minutes as well. And we're not even through halfway through the season. So it's a really good sign of someone who's taken the opportunity really well, and I'm hoping it leads to his development, because we look at someone like, I'll bring it back to Gabbia, we look at a defender here who, before we signed Kjaer, whenever it was, winter 2020, he was starting games. That COVID season, he was playing a lot of games. He got the injury, and it was Romagnoli and Kjaer at the start of the following season, and we brought Tomori in the winter, and his place has really just kind of been left to the wayside, and Kalulu's developed on as well. There's a lot of external factors, and I really feel bad for the kid, but I'm really hoping this is the chance right now for him to get his redemption and really take the chance by, take the bull by the horns and really develop, kick on and stamp his place in the side, which he is only going to do if he has good games. So I'm hoping this continues and he can sort of shake off a few more worse games. But anyway, that's enough about the defenders this week. Tomorrow's game against Torino. Personally, I think we have to come away from that with a win. I know it's a tough game. They won't make it easy for us, but I look at our side right now. I think there's no reason not to get a victory there. And then we've got a massive, huge game against Salzburg midweek where we have to at least get a draw, but I want to see us get that win, especially coming off the back of that emphatic win against Zagreb away. So until then, guys, hoping for 2 wins, and I'll chat to you next week. Forza Milan.